There are women who find men attractive, pleasant, or interesting. And then there is you, a woman who doesn't fit into her understanding, who doesn't want to please, who doesn't negotiate her worth, and doesn't wait to be elected to feel complete. You don't make an effort to please. And that's exactly what triggers something in them that they can't control, an involuntary reaction. Carl Jung once said that what we can't control confronts us with the parts of ourselves that we prefer to repress. You are not a threat because you are cold, intense, or distant, but because you awaken something in him that his ego cannot control. He can't impress you with what he thinks is power because you don't covet his power. He can't manipulate you with silence or distance because you're not afraid to be alone. He can't conquer you because you're not competing for his approval. And this freedom is not arrogance, so it is a way of existing. You're not here to wait for someone to come to complete you. You are already complete. You don't look to be elected. You choose yourself. And it is precisely this reversal of psychological roles that blows up the emotional script that upholds the male ego. A man can flirt, seduce, attract, but what does he do with a woman who doesn't need any of it? How do you play a game with someone who doesn't play at all? This is exactly where the fear arises. Not of you, but of what your presence triggers in him, the collapse of his mask. In front of you, he can't be the man who brags, controls, dominates, or knows everything. Before you, he can only be himself. And although his desire grows, his ego feels exposed. Jung said that the real threat is not what attacks us, but what exposes us. And you expose without wanting to. You're not like other women, not because you're better, but because you don't pretend to be. This form of authenticity doesn't appeal to anyone. It's simple. And that's exactly what leaves him without strategies, without control, and without a place to hide his insecurity. Therefore, he does not know whether to approach or flee, because when he approaches, he has to be real. And when he flees, he has to admit that something in him has touched you more deeply than he can handle. The woman who does not seek confirmation embodies a freedom that exposes his insecurity. Most men don't fear a confident woman. They fear a woman who doesn't need validation. They are used to being the center of admiration. Someone has to look at them, desire them, celebrate them so that they feel valuable. But you don't play that role. And this is where the inner conflict begins. Jung taught that the ego must be constantly fed in order to survive. When he meets a woman who idealizes him, his ego feels important. When she needs him, he feels strong. When she wants to impress him, he feels superior. But a woman who doesn't do any of that confronts him with a truth he can't hide. He's not special just because he exists. You don't feel the need to please someone in order to feel complete. You don't have to be coveted to know you're valuable. You don't seduce to gain control, and you don't adapt to be accepted. It is precisely this absence of neediness that makes you powerful, not because you dominate anyone, but because you don't depend on anyone to be yourself. He doesn't know how to approach such a woman. He can't use his approval as a weapon, steer you with compliments or captivate you with small attentions. Nothing he gives has power over you because you expect nothing. And then something unexpected happens. He begins to feel, not to control, not to plan, to feel. Curiosity, nervousness, real attraction. For the first time, he does not react from his ego, but from his human side. And this human side, without armor, feels naked. Jung said that where there is no need, true connection can arise. But true connection requires honesty. And for many men, this is more frightening than rejection. You're not like the women he knew before. You don't sell yourself for love, attention, or affirmation. You have nothing to prove and nothing to beg. Your freedom does not rule him. It exposes him. You don't want consent, you want truth. And truth is the greatest threat to someone who has always lived from the ego. When a man encounters an emotionally independent woman, he is not afraid of losing her. He is afraid that she will see him. A woman who does not need male validation sees without illusion, without need, without distortion. And this clarity touches directly on what he prefers to hide, his dark side. Jung described the shadows as what the ego cannot accept in itself: insecurity, fear, dependence, selfishness, emotional weakness. He usually hides these parts behind the role of the strong or desirable man. But in front of a woman who expects nothing from him, these masks lose their meaning. There is no one to play in front of, no audience to admire him. Your emotional independence is not indifference, it is the presence without neediness. You don't expect him to choose you, you don't seek salvation. You don't give him the power to disturb your inner balance. And if he can't influence your inner universe, he is left with only his own. That's why he feels fear. You force him to meet himself. Many men think they fear intense women, but in truth, they fear the emotional mirror that these women represent. You don't show him who he should be, but who he is. If he feels manipulative, insecure, or empty next to you, it's not your fault. You're just mirroring what was already inside him. You can't control a woman who isn't afraid to be alone. You can't manipulate a woman who doesn't need confirmation. You can't impress a woman who is already impressed by her own life. This kind of presence destroys the emotional power he believed he had over women. Jung said that when the shadow becomes visible, we have two options: transform or flee. That's why some men come with sudden intensity and then disappear. They don't leave because they don't care about you. They leave because they can't sustain the lie of who they think they are by your side. Your independence threatens him not because you are distant, but because you are free. And emotional freedom is not rebellion, it is maturity. This maturity does not humiliate him, it exposes him. She doesn't attack him, she shows him. She doesn't reject him, she confronts him with what he really is. And for an ego that only finds its value in having control, this is staggering. A woman like you is not frightened by what she shows, but by what she sees. Most people want to be loved by putting their best foot forward. They exaggerate their strengths, hide their weaknesses, cover up their wounds. But you're not playing this game. You don't have to play a role to feel lovable. Your strength lies in your ability to see without judging, to feel without clinging, to connect without asking for anything. This emotional depth needs no evidence, no explanations, no persecution, no request for attention. It is simply there, quiet, clear, sensing. This ability to see behind the facade inevitably puts a man in front of his truth. He can't want to be someone next to you. He can only be himself. And for an ego that protects itself by rolling, it's like standing naked in the brightest light. Carl Jung said that the soul does not want seduction. It wants authenticity, and you embody exactly that, often without knowing it. Not by big words or spiritual poses, but by your mere way of being. Your emotional honesty isn't loud or dramatic, it's quiet. And that's what makes it so powerful. What doesn't need noise remains. While others are thinking about how to please them, you wonder what is true. While others struggle to be elected, you decide who you let into your inner space. And this choice, made out of calm and not out of lack, has a disturbing effect on him. He begins to wonder if he is even up to your truth, because your depth doesn't demand perfection. It demands presence. She doesn't want proofs of love, but coherence. No big promises, but inner sincerity. When you connect from this emotional truth, you invite him, unspoken, to do the same. And that's where the fear arises. Can it be real without losing its value? Jung said, the most transformative relationships are those that connect with the unconscious, not through control but through sincerity. You embody exactly this sincere emotionality, which evokes desire and vulnerability at the same time. You are feared not because of your intensity, but because of the effect of your authenticity. Not because you speak deeply, but because you see deeply. Not because you demand love, but because you only accept it when it is true. And it is precisely this quiet, firm, sensitive truth that is the force that attracts and frightens him at the same time. He doesn't fight for you, and that's exactly what makes him feel insecure. The male ego is used to being emotionally persecuted, not always obviously, but in subtle gestures, looks asking for approval, words that are meant to please, small courtesies disguised as interest, unconscious attempts to find a place in the life of the other. These are emotional forms of struggle. Strategies to say, look at me, vote for me. But you don't do that. You don't fight, you don't compete, you're not trying to win anything. For you, a relationship is not a prize, a man is not a goal, and this absence of struggle, which you take for granted, throws him off balance. Not because it hurts his pride, but because it dissolves the emotional structure in which he felt safe. If a woman does not compete for his attention, does not compete with others, does not try to stand out or gain his favor, something in him collapses. Because he was convinced that he was desirable, because he was desired. With you, this logic no longer works. Its value has no power over you, and its ego remains without function. Carl Jung said that the ego needs contrasts in order to feel big. Someone smaller, more dependent, more needy. But if you don't take on this role, he can no longer feel great about you. He has to find greatness in himself. And that's the biggest emotional challenge for someone who has never built their self-esteem from the inside out. Your emotional neutrality is not coldness, it is freedom. Your lack of struggle is not indifference, it is dignity. You don't hold anyone to prove your worth. You choose what is good for you. And if someone doesn't want to stay, that's also a choice. No drama, no chasing, no begging for love. What is common sense to you can feel like a silent judgment to him. If you want to stay, be real. If not, you're free to go. And it is precisely this freedom that becomes a frightening mirror, because if you don't hold him, he's facing his own desire. If he stays, it is not out of habit. If he chooses you, it is not out of need. If he desires you, it's not out of lack, but because he really wants to. But this requires a degree of emotional honesty that many men are not used to, and that's why it's not your lack of interest that unsettles him, but your non-urgency. He doesn't fear your rejection. He fears that you can live perfectly well without him. And with a woman who doesn't fight for him, he has only one option: to be real or to leave. And for an ego that is used to being desired, this is scary. A man can be attracted to many women, but only one disarms him, the ones he cannot control. Control does not always mean manipulation, but emotional influence. Most men have learned, consciously or unconsciously, that they can influence a woman's self-esteem, with attention, with distance, with silence, with occasional interest. It is a psychological language that they often speak without knowing it. If I give you or take something, you will feel something for me. But it doesn't work with you. You don't change when he writes, and you don't break when he's silent. You're not obsessed when he looks at you, nor hurt when he walks away. He cannot influence your mind because you do not act out of lack. And this confronts him with a reality that his ego cannot control. He has no power over your inner world. Carl Jung explained that true emotional strength does not lie in influencing others, but in possessing an inner world that is not shaken by external movements. You embody exactly this quiet strength. You don't need a man to feel complete. And that's exactly what makes you unassailable. Not because you are rebellious, but because you are sovereign inside. He cannot unsettle you with his silence if you have found peace within yourself. He can't make you feel insecure if your self-confidence doesn't depend on being desired. It can't go away to make you miss if you don't act out of emotional dependence. This creates a completely new dynamic for him. If he wants to stay, he has to do it without masks, without games, without strategies. And that's exactly what scares him. It's not you, not your strength, not your independence. What really frightens him is that he can relate to you in only one way: through truth. He no longer has a space in which his ego serves as a shield, as a currency, or as a weapon. If he stays, he has to be real, vulnerable, human. And that's exactly what exposes him more than any rejection could. That is why Jung said that we are not afraid of the other, but of what the other awakens in us. You awaken in him the possibility of love without control, a connection without games, a relationship that demands emotional maturity. And he knows, even if he never says it, that he can't manipulate you to be needed, nor can he impress you to be admired. The only thing left for him is to be real. And for an ego that has been hiding all its life, that's scary. The shocking truth is, he is not afraid of losing you. He fears that he is not enough. Many women believe that men withdraw because they don't feel anything, because they don't care, because they are not interested. But the truth is far more complex, darker, and deeper. Sometimes a man withdraws because he feels too much, because you mean more to him than he can admit, because he suspects that charm, attention, or playing with secrets won't be enough with you. He has to be real with you. Carl Jung said that the unconscious is always looking for what confronts us with our inner truth. And that's exactly what he sees in you. A woman he can neither control nor manipulate nor buy with admiration. A woman who forces him to be real, not shiny, deep, not just attractive, emotionally present, not just physically present. Most men have learned to win love with gestures, conquests, and subtle seduction. But that's not enough for you. You do not indulge in empty talk, false gestures, or changing interests. He knows. If he wants to stay in your life, he has to be completely there, consciously, clearly, decisively. He can't throw his heart at you improvised. And that's exactly when what looks like coldness or disinterest happens. He withdraws, not because he doesn't love you, but because he doubts himself, because he's afraid of disappointing you, because he's not sure if he can maintain the emotional level that you've been carrying alone for a long time. And this realization completely disarms him. He's not afraid of losing you. He's afraid he won't be enough for a woman like you. And therein lies your true power, not in your beauty, your intelligence, or your independence, but in something much deeper, in your ability to love without needing, in your way of giving without begging, to feel without losing yourself, to unite out of abundance, not out of lack. That's what makes him doubt himself. Jung said true love does not arise between two incomplete halves that seek each other, but between two whole souls that recognize each other. You don't seek it to become complete. You already are, and it is precisely this kind of love that is most intimidating, the one that exposes the ego and demands authenticity. If he stays, it will be because he has decided to grow, and if he leaves, it's not a loss. It's just someone who wasn't ready yet for love without fear.